Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So in this one we're going to be breaking down the standout performers from yesterday's game against the Washington Commanders. Obviously a lot of positives. The Jets won the game 20-17, but when you look at individual eye test performances, a lot of people jumped off the screen. When you look at the box score, you can actually see some really exciting stuff. So let's dive into the first player here. First round pick, Olu Fashanu. I thought Olu looked great. Now, going into the game, you're looking at who you're playing. It's Washington, a team that hasn't really had that much success with rushing the passer. So a lot of people kind of assume that the tackles would have a solid day in pass protection, but it's still great to see that Olu, who is the projected backup right now behind Tyron Smith, went out there and had a really great day. Was it perfect? No. He did allow a pressure. He did jump for a false start, but hey, was out there for a decent amount of time in the first half, and I thought that he looked good. I thought that he held his own. I thought his feet were really quick. Getting to his spot, really did a good job with that, and definitely flashed the tools of a future franchise left tackle, in my opinion. Look, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here and say, oh, Olu's gonna be the top 5 tackle in 2 years or anything like that, but based off this one preseason game. But again, just looking at individuals' performances, being able to walk away from this game and looking at Olu and how he performed, it's a pretty good feeling, knowing that he went out there, handled business, showed off his athleticism, showed off his talent level, and overall had a pretty productive Saturday. Next up, running back Braelon Allen. So much fun to watch. Just, I keep using this term for him, but bowling ball. He just does not go down on first contact. He like every time you watch him with the football, he's always falling forward. And you love that about running backs because, in 3rd and 1 situations, 4th and inches, goal line, you're on your own goal line, you have to get out of it. You need a guy who can, create that positive yardage. And, Braelon Allen, as far as what we've heard and seen through training camp so far, matched with, of course, the joint practice and this preseason game, I mean, man, he really fits the bill for what the Jets want in that RB2, that third down running back, somebody to take some of the pressure off of Breece Hall. But on the day, he carried the rock 6 times and had 54 yards. So he averaged 9 yards per carry. And the yards after contact, I thought was huge. Also, Braelon Allen does not look like, somebody who takes a long time to get going. Like, that burst is there, that acceleration is there. He could really get up to speed very quickly. And going back to his Wisconsin days, he was somebody who had a lot. They really fed him the football. He wasn't like some sort of gadget player or, somebody who had to take a lot of time to learn the Wisconsin system or anything like that. Like, when he came in, he was really thrown into action immediately. Had the 3 seasons at Wisconsin. And coming in at 20 years old to this New York Jets locker room, as somebody who doesn't have to be the bell cow guy, I really loved what I saw from Braelon Allen, and just kind of getting excited about what he's going to be able to do in the regular season. In this, I don't mean this term to sound rude or anything, but it's a diminished role because he isn't the starting running back. Because he's going to be in this diminished role, I really feel like he's primed to, put the offense on his back in, cold weather games, in those games late into the season, potentially playoff games or matchups where the Jets could be up by 10 or 14 or 17 or whatever the case may be, and you need to grind down the clock, you need to control the ball or give your defense a rest. It really seems like Braelon Allen could be one of those running backs where you just feed him the football and he's always going to be able to snag positive yardage. Next up, the other running back here, Isaiah Davis. Now, on the ground, he didn't really put up super impressive stats or anything, but through the air, Isaiah Davis actually made a pretty big impact catching the football. He looked quick, he looked explosive, it looked like he had a lot of pop. We know Nathaniel Hackett to call a ton of screens, and Isaiah Davis kind of seemed to be that go-to option in those 3rd and long situations. And granted, we have to credit the quarterbacks, both Adrian Martinez and Peasley, for both having great days. We're going to get to him in just a second here. But no, it was really cool to see Isaiah Davis, somebody who is, I want to say guaranteed the RB3 job at this point. Obviously, Allen and Breece are in front of him, but he was handpicked by the coaching staff. somebody who is clearly getting a ton of opportunities in camp. It was really cool to see just that two-headed monster at running back, not including Breece Hall. So with Isaiah Davis, I think, again, the biggest thing for me, what separated his performance amongst the rest was his quickness in open field. Again, was he perfect? No. But he did flash, and he did actually look a lot more explosive than I expected when the Jets initially drafted him, which is a huge sign. Okay, so let's take a look at the quarterback position. Both Peasley and Adrian Martinez, I thought, did a great job, all things considered, right? When we take a look at a guy in Peasley, coming in as an undrafted free agent, I thought he showed a lot of poise. He was able to complete a lot of passes, put the ball in play, spray it around. Granted, a lot of them were just simple screens or checkdowns, but hey, that's what we've been begging for from the quarterback position for years. Can a quarterback just hit a basic screen pass, or does it have to sail over the target's head, or does it have to bounce on the turf? We saw that time and time again with take your pick, Tim Boyle, Zach Wilson, even Sam Darnold would miss easy throws. And again, all things considered, Peasley coming in as a UDFA from Wyoming, a Utah State transfer to Wyoming, now to the New York Jets. I mean, for your first NFL action, to not turn the football over, to not look like a deer in headlights, I think Peasley can walk away from today's game and say to himself, you know what, I controlled it. I managed it. I didn't put the team in a bad situation. I didn't really get overwhelmed by the defense. Granted, it was a lot of vanilla looks. It's preseason here. It's not like we're seeing week 15 crazy exotic blitzes or anything, seasons on the line. But all things considered, I thought Peasley did a pretty good job. And then as far as Adrian Martinez goes, man, he was super impressive. The arm strength, the ability to work under center. Hackett was dialing some stuff up under center for Martinez, and he looked super smooth with it. This is somebody who played with Scott Frost in Nebraska, tons of wide open spread. Obviously goes to Kansas State the year or after his Nebraska career, does a fantastic job in the UFL MVP. I mean, he looked the part today, right? Made some awesome throws. He had one crazy throw where he was fading away to his right and just kind of dropped it into the bucket. I don't want to say to win the game, but it was that final drive. Martinez, again, he made big time plays. He had a really nice pass deep down the field. Martinez, if it's Martinez and Peasley for, to be that quarterback 4, I think the Jets are going to be in, this is a luxury, right, that the Jets are in right now, where we have two comparable 4th quarterback options. And again, we're just looking at this one preseason game, but so far, you gotta love to see these guys have success this early, specifically compared to what we're used to. Now, flipping over to the defensive side, I think for me there was 3 players that separated themselves from the rest. The first was Tanzel Smart. Smart's been around. It's not like he's a former first-round pick. It's not like he's a brand new free agent or anything. He's been around the block. He's spent time on the practice squad. And he always kind of feels like that bubble fringe type of player, like the first man to get the call if somebody goes down with an injury on the Jets defensive line, but not good enough to make the 53. I thought today he was fantastic, being able to make a lot of noise. I think he had 7 tackles, on the day, which is huge. And if Tanzel Smart continues to get better year after year, offseason after offseason, because I felt like he was this close a year ago. If he can have another 2 good days, two good preseason performances, I would not be surprised if Tanzel Smart actually makes the roster, considering all the defensive linemen that we lost in the offseason. Granted, we brought in a couple, but Al Woods, Quentin Jefferson, Bryce Huff, JFM, we have to replace those guys. With other players. And again, if Tanzel Smart continues to perform well, I like his chances. Next up, Leonard Taylor. This is somebody who had a sack. He had 2 tackles for loss. He kept finding his way into the backfield. He looked quick. He looked explosive. He had pop to him, but also physical as well. I mean, Leonard Taylor had a lot of hype when the Jets initially signed him as a UDFA out of Miami. But geez, for him to burst out onto the scene like this early into the preseason game, I mean, he made that huge play in the first quarter. It's not like it was the last couple of minutes in that fourth quarter where he finally turned, he finally made a play. Like he really looked explosive. He looked nasty. He looked again physical. Look, Leonard Taylor, and I know a lot of the talk and attention has been put on Eric Watts, and rightfully so. And he had a solid day as well. But I think Leonard Taylor, man, he really jumped off the screen. Like when he was out on the field, like lining up in the D line, you knew exactly where he was. And at one point, so after he made the big play, I'm like, man, like I just got to focus in on Leonard Taylor. So even on the plays that he didn't, secure a tackle or whatever, it was still so much fun to just watch him move around and kind of just blow up offensive linemen. So Leonard Taylor, I thought was a huge standout from yesterday's game. And last but not least, safety Jalen Key. I don't want to say blown away, but I was really, really impressed with what with what Key put together. I mean, if you take his game, right, and you show that to somebody that doesn't really watch a ton of football, and you say, hey, this guy was a second round pick, this guy was a third round pick, they would probably believe you. Jalen Key was all around the field today, coming up and stuffing the run, always being near the football. He had 6 tackles on the day. Again, he did not look like a 7th round pick, let alone the last pick in the draft. And anytime you're talking about a player that's coming out of Alabama specifically, I don't know if we can make this argument in the future because Nick Saban is not there, but Nick Saban always, when it comes to defensive backs, Nick Saban always seems to get the most out of these players. So on one end, you can maybe argue, okay, well, that's not necessarily a good thing at the NFL level because we already know what he is as a player. The coaching tactics, the facilities, the practices, everything, right? The competition level. These players are getting a lot better at a really rapid rate at the collegiate level, that once they hit the pros, again, how much room is there left in the tank for these players to grow? Have they reached their ceilings? Which I think you can maybe argue that with offensive tackles coming out of Alabama. But when it comes to defensive backs, where Saban is always, like, that's always been Saban's specialty, you always feel like these guys are polished. They don't make a ton of mistakes. I know Jets fans are gonna go right to the D Milliner draft pick, but again, looking at the macro perspective here, Saban's body of work at safety, at corner, these guys do come in pretty polished, high floor types of players. Again, maybe not providing the highest of ceilings, but as prospects, they're not going to be totally overwhelmed by again, practice schedules, practice setups, the ways of professional football, because Alabama is, or maybe, again, I don't know necessarily with DeBoer moving forward, but Saban treated Alabama as probably as most professional as you can possibly get at the collegiate level, which obviously if you're a prospect coming in, that is super, super attractive. If a program can offer that. But in any case, Jalen Key flew around the football field, super, super impressed with what he showed. And look, if Ashton Davis is banged up and is taking a while to come back, maybe Key can jump on that opportunity. But worst case scenario, he's going to be in the practice squad. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. And as always, go Jets.